Okay, so here's the thing. A couple of days ago, I was going to make a video titled "The Death of a Franchise," and I was just going to talk about Battlefield in general. But new news just came to light when it comes to Battlefield, and yes, I'm aware I said new news, so just get over it like that. It's a bit of a tongue twister. So as we know now, based off this morning, Battlefield 2042, it's not going to get its first real DLC slash Season 1 until early summer. Now this is, personally for me, this is actually a terrible, terrible state for the game, mainly because the game's already a buggy mess. The game came without a lot of features, the game came broken, and honestly a lot of people hated what the game came with that actually worked. All the new features that didn't really fit Battlefield, like, people hated it. Me personally, I just didn't think to fit Battlefield, and I'm not a big Battlefield player. I play it from time to time and I enjoy myself in Battlefield, but I'm always someone who prefers the more arcade shooters or more smaller compact shooters, such as Medal of Honor Warfighter or Call of Duty. But realistically, for me to actually see this situation with Battlefield is actually a bit of a turn off for the franchise in general, because everyone, including myself, I think in this, has always sort of seen Battlefield as another option when it comes to the FPS games. Usually, when it comes to the FPS games, you have the two big runners. You have Call of Duty and Battlefield. Both are very different games within the same sort of theme. This year, Battlefield has just had an absolute nightmare, so it has. It's realistically, if you ask me personally, repeated pretty much the same mistakes Medal of Honor Warfighter did. And I know a lot of people will argue, well, that was a game that came out 10 years ago. I get that. But realistically, I thought EA would have learned a lesson. And what I mean by that is, Medal of Honor Warfighter was pushed out way before it was ready to be complete. That game had a lot missing in it. It was a buggy mess at launch. And realistically, it almost did kill the franchise realistically until 2020's Above and Beyond, the VR exclusive. Again, whether or not the franchise is dead entirely is up for debate. Some people say yes, some people say no. But realistically, Battlefield to me has done the exact same mistakes. And what makes it worse than Medal of Honor Warfighter in that situation is the fact that a lot of times people will say Battlefield 2042, you still actually can't play it. It's in a state where a lot of consoles are crashing because of it. PCs can't run it. And my PC especially, I have a pretty decent PC. I'm not going to say it's the best of the best, but it's decent enough to run the latest hardware games and so forth. When it comes to Battlefield 2042, I have to put that PC on medium settings. Now this is a PC that has a great graphics card. Pretty much this PC should be able to run this game, and this game lags like crazy, so it does. It has constant crashes and it just cannot run this game. Now again, this PC can run Call of Duty games, the latest one, Vanguard, without an if or a but. It can run FIFA games. It is honestly a decent sized PC and a decent compatible PC. My problem is the game just won't run on it. It's the game itself is an absolute mess. And I've seen a lot of people online have been having this issue, so a lot of people have been complaining constantly about this. And realistically, if you ask me, that's strike one, so it is that the game can't actually run. Strike two is the fact that they hadn't got a campaign to work on. Now, I know a lot of people will be saying, well, why complain about a campaign? Campaign plays no part in multiplayer whatsoever. I get that. But realistically, when you weigh it up, then that means DICE only had to work on one element of this game, the multiplayer side of things. And even at that, did they really work on a lot of the multiplayer? Because, as we all know, Ripple Effect Studios worked on Portal mode, which Portal is realistically probably the most played aspect of Battlefield 2042, if I'm being totally honest with you at the minute. No one I see is really playing the base game of Conquest or even Rush. Realistically, a friend of mine actually said this, and see, to be honest, I actually agree with him. Battlefield 2042 is in a state where realistically the only game mode it seems that DICE actually properly worked on was Conquest. And Conquest, I get that, I get the having 128 players or whatever the player count is actually difficult to manifest, but has anyone ever heard the old saying, if it didn't broke, don't fix it? There was nothing wrong with Battlefield's player count of previous games. No one was ever complaining or saying they need to up this. Granted, yes, everyone was saying they would have liked the free-to-play mode, or they would have liked, a game mode that would have effectively allowed smaller or more players. I get that, but no one was crying out for the 128 players that DICE were really throwing in on their market and saying that this is going to be the biggest scale warfare going. I understand the maps are a lot bigger, so obviously you'll have a bit of lag and a bit of issue when it comes to developing those. But realistically, a studio like DICE, who's been doing this for years upon years, should not be having these same issues with a new game. Okay, this is, if you personally ask me, a worse launch than both Medal of Honor Warfighter and Battlefield 4. Now, the reason to bring Battlefield 4 up is one, because there's gameplay footage in the background, for a start. Also, number two is the Battlefield 4 actually had a ridiculously bad launch. If anyone's actually old enough to remember it, on PC you couldn't play it. It's a similar situation to this. The only difference was Battlefield 4 was backed up constantly by DLC. I think the first DLC for that game came out in like November of 2013, December 2013, so roughly a month to 2 months after the game was released. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, I really am open to corrections at this point. But you see my point, they were releasing DLC and they had a stack of weapons that were ready to go within that game. Battlefield 2042 is sitting in a situation where there's really very little weapons, there's not a lot of maps in the game, and now we've just got the news dropped on us that the first DLC slash Season 1 of the game was actually meant to come out in March. It's now been delayed till summer. Now usually people, when they say summer, it's early summer, so you're talking maybe June, July, if worst case. The problem is this clearly shows that EA were not ready for this game. EA had a lot of issues with this game and repeated the exact same mistake they did with Warfighter. They threw it out way ahead of its time before it was even ready to be released. The only difference about Medal of Honor Warfighter compared to Battlefield 2042 is the fact that Medal of Honor was actually in a playable state for a bit. You can actually still play Medal of Honor Warfighter, even though there's a lot of bugs that have never been looked at. The game in its own right, if you weigh the two of them up, which is scary when you think about it, Medal of Honor Warfighter is probably a better game at the minute than Battlefield 2042 is, only because the core element of the game is there. Battlefield's missing a lot. Battlefield just doesn't feel like a high budget game. See, to be honest with you, and this is going to throw a lot of people the wrong way, to me this is the worst Battlefield game I've ever played. Now, I'm not a big lover of World War II games, as many people who know me actually know. A lot of people who've been watching my older videos will know that I'm not a big lover of World War II games. But Battlefield 5, for instance, I go back and I play it, and I'll be honest with you, I actually really liked Battlefield 5. I can't lie to you. I've done a full sniper montage that I have to throw out on that game because I've had so much fun on it recently. Battlefield 2042, there's nothing to bring me back. There's no engagement with that game whatsoever. Yes, they're adding these skins left, right and centre, but realistically that's a cliche microtransaction thing that EA is trying to throw at us to say, well, the game's not good, so just maybe buy it, please. Just buy the skin. It'll be nice if you buy the skin for us. No one wants to buy a skin. What people want is a functional game that actually works well. And honestly, I thought EA would have learned their lesson after that huge mistake that was Warfighter. But, you know, the old saying is, if you're from the UK, I don't know if this is a big saying globally, a leopard never changes its spots, basically. And that's been pretty much what EA's done again. They've handcuffed the developer and threw him out at the deep end when the game wasn't ready. Now, I understand with the whole pandemic, you have DICE here trying to work on this game from home and realistically get this game out in the right amount of time. I get that, but the problem is that Call of Duty can do it annually. Yes, a lot of their games are hit and miss. For instance, Call of Duty Cold War, I didn't love it too much. I didn't think it was actually that good of a game, but at the same time, it's a game that functions. It's a game that got constant updates, and it's a game that runs well enough, so it is. And this was created by people who were working from home. EA are in a situation that their game should have been at least on par with Cold War, and I think Cold War is actually a better game, and I hate Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. Like, honestly, I cringe every time I have to play that game, and have to play that game is a bit of a strong point, but you know what I mean. I just hate that game so much. But that game, like I say, was able to be built from people who were working from home. EA have had 3 years, longer than they've had on any other Battlefield game, effectively, because traditionally Battlefield takes 2 years to develop a game, so it's usually between, like, if we look at Battlefield 3, it's Battlefield 3 came out in 2011, Battlefield 4 came out in 2013, and Battlefield 1 was actually 2016. Now, between this, Battlefield Hardline got released in 2015, so that, and again, 2 years after the 2013 release of Battlefield 4. The only difference is that this was made by a different company in Visceral, so it was, and it was realistically, a lot of people said it felt more of a spin-off. So a lot of people don't really count that as the mainstay Battlefield series game. So that was 3 years between those games, and the quality we had in Battlefield 1 compared to Battlefield 4 was ridiculous. Everyone loved it for a short time, but then eventually people started flocking back to the modern setting of Battlefield 4. EA then did World War II with Battlefield 5, which, despite the first initial trailer reactions, turned out to be a really good game. The only difference is that EA, when Battlefield 5 was released, EA were ready with DLC. I know the same thing happened, there was a couple months here and there, but if you look back at the DLC between Battlefield 5 and what came before it, the DLC was actually on par. The DLC was running out at a smooth enough time that people weren't complaining about it, and the DLC saved that game, and this happens quite a lot with Battlefield game. DLC tend to save those games, so it's one of those situations, and this game is delaying its DLC, which, if you ask me, is the biggest mistake it can do. This game desperately needs, Battlefield 2042 that is, desperately needs DLC out ASAP, because the current state of this game is, if you ask me, it's the worst Battlefield game I've ever played, and I've played quite a few of them. But realistically, that's only my own opinions. Is this the death of a franchise? The title's probably a bit odd, so it is. The reason I put it down as the title is the death of a franchise is mainly because similar situations happened to Medal of Honor Warfighter, and that was pretty much the death of a franchise as it currently stands. So it is. So I just put down that as the title for that one reason. But I've been encouraged, if you guys agree with any of my points I made here, if you guys like the video I made, please feel free to leave a like. Also, if you're new to the channel, please maybe consider subscribing. I do a lot of different stuff. Hopefully I'll get more gameplays out in the next coming days. But yeah, I've been encouraged, you've been new. Thanks for checking out the video. Have a nice day. Peace.